Well, thank you for being here. I'm Amy McCormick, most of you I know, president of Calumet College, and I'm going to introduce our guests, but I first just wanted to say this particular event is certainly near to my heart because I started the Women's History Month panel. I am the first female president of Calumet College. I'm actually the only female president in the history of Northwest Indiana, and we have 5 colleges, so I think I don't always, I don't know whether take credit or not, but I was raised in a household of boys, so I don't always think about that, but I do when I talk to alums many times, they talk about the first female president and how important that is. So since this is the Women's History Month panel, I just wanted to recognize that that is a great accomplishment, and I'm very proud to be the first female president and the only female president in Northwest Indiana. And I always like to take this time to just talk a little bit about Women's History Month. So this is our panel, but just to reflect on a little bit of the history, and certainly Women's History Month is a time to reflect on the courage of women in past generations and to celebrate how their efforts and bravery afforded women the opportunities and freedoms they have today. And it was started in 1978 in a town in California, and it was a commission on the status of women celebrated Women's History Week. And that week was chosen to include International Women's Day, which is March 8th. And then the movement spread, and into the 1980s, a consortium of women's groups and historians asked the federal government for recognition. And at that time, it was Jimmy Carter proclaimed the week of March 8th as National Women's History Week. And of course continued to grow and get momentum, and in 1987 Congress designated the month of March as Women's History Month. So this year's theme is Leading the Change, Women Shaping a Sustainable Future. So I am so honored to have 2 amazing women join me today that have spent much of their time, professional time, personal journey, with building sustainability and resilient communities. So I've spent the last 9 years leading change at Calumet College of St. Joseph to do just that, to shape a sustainable future for the college. So a word to our audience. I will take a little time, introduce our guests. We'll have a conversation, but we will save some time at the end. So if you have questions, please either shout them out, raise your hand, and we'll have a conversation as well. So I'm going to highlight a little bit of their bios and share a little bit about each of our guests. So first we have Ebony Sharif. Ebony is a wellness educator and the visionary founder of the Phoenix Enhancing the Spirit LLC, where she designs and facilitates evidence-informed programming that advances individual and overall collective well-being. Grounded in a holistic framework, Ebony integrates environmental trauma education, nutrition literacy, healthcare awareness, organic tastings, mindfulness practices, and practical stress reduction strategies to serve diverse communities with intention and impact. Her work supports community success initiatives by strengthening the foundational wellness habits that directly influence focus, sustained energy, mental clarity, and emotional resilience. Through strategic partnerships with like-minded leaders, organizations, and institutions, Ebony cultivates environments where individuals feel grounded, supported, and empowered to thrive personally, academically, and professionally. So welcome, Ebony. I actually became familiar with your work before I actually met you because she had some exhibits in our Black History Month exhibit right next door. So if you happen to have seen those and it said the Phoenix, that was Ebony. So, and then I learned a little bit about her that she does urban farming. So having been from a farm, I took a special interest. So I'm delighted to have you here.
And Madeline Tudor, thank you for joining us today. Madeline is a senior environmental social scientist with the Keller Science Action Center at the Field Museum. Her applied research brings an anthropological focus on the relationship between people, place, and landscapes in the urban context. She is passionate about connecting the vast resources of museums like the Field with broader publics through community-based exhibitions, ethnographic research, programs, and convenings to showcase and amplify untold stories of resilience and diverse lived experience. During her 25 plus years at the Field, she has co-curated a number of exhibitions, written about visual anthropology and the role of art in community placemaking, engaged a wide range of stakeholders to form regional networks, and developed a variety of interpretive media projects. Recent highlights include leading the collaborative curation of the Calumet Voices National Stories, which is a multi-sided exhibition series. Madeline holds an MA in anthropology from the University of Illinois at Chicago. So welcome, thank you for being here. You know, yes, I think about the timing of hosting Madeline to our campus, and she's been here a few times, but it's significant because in May, our 7th floor Heritage Room will open. And I think about the concepts of the stories for those spaces on the 7th floor, but we will also have exhibits in room 200 and in the gallery next door that are celebrating the people, the land, and the industries of Northwest Indiana. And in her exhibit at Field Museum, it was where I kind of got the concept. So I think, was that 3 or 4 years ago? That I came down to the Field and I went through your exhibit, and then ironically Professor Casello introduced us at the Pullman Museum when it was on tour. So thank you for being the seed for what will live on in history at Calumet College. So thank you very much for that, your work. Really appreciate it.
It's a joy. It's a joy to be here, and thank you for inviting me today.
Well, this year's theme, you've heard a little bit about it, resilience, and then how our theme for Women's History Month. So we're just going to have a conversation, and I have a couple questions, and you know, the theme for Women's History Month is about sustainability and shaping the futures. And it certainly encompasses more than environmental stewardship. I think when we think sustainability, we always think about the environment. But I think both of you are certainly working in financial equity, social justice, education enhancement. And so you're shaping or creating systems that support people, communities, and the planet. So if you could share just a little bit about your leadership and the work that you do that will shape a sustainable future. So, yeah, Natalie, you want to start?
Sure. And I always, okay, I think the mic is working.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I think one of the things that maybe I can talk a little bit about that we don't always think about in terms of sustainability is different cultural practices that we bring and to how we use our resources and how we think about the kinds of communities and places we want to be around and that we want to live in. And one of the things I love so much about the Calumet region is just its incredible diversity. And it's cultural diversity, the incredible cultural diversity, but also the biological diversity that is here all throughout the region. I'm a cultural anthropologist, and I do work with urban communities, and I do applied anthropology. So we bring sort of the resources of the Field Museum out into the communities, into our neighborhoods, on our neighbors, like the Calumet region. We have a very large number, I don't remember the percentage, but many of our members are from here throughout Northwest Indiana and the southeast side of Chicago. And it's a place that has grown up with the Field Museum. Since the Field Museum was an institution, that's when the steel mills started, sort of taking over this area, and people started coming from all over the world to live in this area and brought their cultural traditions and practices with them, and then together, through interacting with, different cultural perspectives, cultural practices changed. And one of the things that, I just find so fascinating when we think about sustainability and social justice, and all of those are, big, complicated questions, but when you think about your relationship to the land and to each other, and what are what you hold as important in those instances, and how you make decisions based on those values. And you can have those values from your own. We all have culture. That's how we make decisions about the resources we use and how we want to use them in the world. But you can think about what you learn from people living in other places or coming from other cultural traditions, as well as your own. And you're constantly creating culture as well. So you are constantly learning and being creative. That's one of the things we do as humans, is we have this unique ability to be to have unlimited creativity. So we're always problem solving, and we're always learning from each other, and we're always adapting to changing circumstances. And those stories of so much of those ways of being and ways of learning are right here in this region. And so tapping into some of that and learning each other's stories, and facing how we face those challenges with very little sometimes, is to me very fascinating and encouraging in thinking about sustainability and social
the
justice.
Calumet Voices, that exhibit, I was thinking some of our audience members may not realize the Calumet region is, I always say, simplify Michigan City to Chicago. But when you think about all the different cultures in that area, and the ability that we'll try to preserve some of those cultures right here in room 200 and celebrate them. What about you? Do you want to add to that? You probably have lots to add. So
yes, well, Madeline, I totally agree with you as far as everything that you said, and just acknowledging everybody's cultural differences. I think that is the key to creating sustainability. What I do is I'm a wellness educator, so I teach people how their environment, the traumas of their environment, how it affects them, but also how to be able to change and shift your own perception, so you can be able to experience your environment in a different way, versus feeling like this is my only choice, right? What I do is teach you to go within, so you can really do what it is that you choose to do, that you really love doing, and how to bring that out and give that in such a creative way to your community. First to yourself, to your family, and then to the community. And what I call that is a term that I like to say, the living word, right? When people can see change, then that's when it sparks change. So I believe that sustainability is not just being able to maintain who you are, but also being able to teach it as well, but not your structure, but teaching it in a way of freedom to where others can find who they are within. So.
no, I want to pick up on that, how we can, the interplay between resilience and sustainability. So sometimes I use those words as interchangeable, but as I was reflecting on it in preparation for our panel and thinking about our theme, I think you can be really resilient, but what you do helps you to take that resiliency so it's sustainable, and it's not just I'm resilient, I can get through this challenging time. But I like what you said, that you're trying to change those ways so it's a positive.
Yeah, indeed. It's just about seeing your experience instead of being in a victim standpoint, right? seeing the power in your experience, seeing the lessons within your experience, and being able to strategically move forward within it. So, you'll be a better you.
We heard from our speaker this morning, just you don't always know some of the challenges that you go through, that there is a purpose or what you can learn from them till later on.
Yeah, the word says that it become your testimony, your trials. So we tend to forget that. We tend to become shameful within our trials and not really understanding that that is our testimony for others to get through, not in the same way, but just for them to know that there is another way out, so, yeah.
And Madeline, you work a lot with that, with the lived experience and all the cultures and telling storytelling.
Yeah, and I know it really, I love this question because it really got me thinking, and I too often use the terms interchangeably and then really realize like they're very related, but they're not the same.
Right.
And I think the resiliency piece is that's about, right, having gone through challenges and having problem solved through those challenges, trial and error, not, always making mistakes and coming, but somehow finding ways to continue to be here, to exist, to, have a place in the world. And the sustainability part is how do you look at that resilience, at people's experiences of resiliency, and saying, hey, that is something that they've done a lot of this hard work. They've met these challenges. They've gone through, trial and error. What can we learn to you adopt those practices or integrate those practices for a sustainable lifestyle and a sustainable world?
I know the students, I think it was during a finals week, they had a task to write a message and share it with people, and I don't even know the student that wrote it on a Post-it note and put it on my door. It's still there today, so it's been there probably 7 years. And it says, we grow through what we go through.
Yes.
And I love just that simple saying, we grow through what we go through. And, I think about that there are some times where the challenges feel so great that I think of that, God won't give you more than you can handle. And sometimes I have to have a talk and say, you're misreading the situation right now because it feels pretty tough. But so I'm curious, if you think about your either upbringing or your life or an incident in your life, that kind of what sparked your passion for shaping sustainable futures or resilience or well-being? Was there something in particular? Was it just your college studies, but how you picked your major? Or Madeline, you wanna?
Sure. That's another great question, and I think for me there was a lot. My parents, my mother especially, was always exposed us to different cultures. She was fascinated by how people just created amazing artwork, food, political perspectives, and I also always found that incredibly fascinating and always wanted to live all over the world and speak all the languages and eat all the food and, just be different in different cultures. But another thing that struck me through that question is I lived always in the United States, but I grew up in the country, and it was the northwest suburbs of Chicago, but at that time it was very rural. It was farmland, and we were outside all the time and in nature all the time. And then we moved to the city, and it was a very different world. And so that comparison was very profound, I think, in my understanding of different places and different kinds kinds of relationships to those places and the similarities and the differences there. And I also, when I lived in the country, I also sort of lived in a sort of a hippie commune back in the day. I didn't live there actually, but was very involved in that and a free education school that my mother started. And so I was exposed to a very different way of life and very different perspectives on sort of how, you know, things are done or different kinds of institutional perspectives. And so that kind of got ingrained in me. And so those differences and thinking about those is something that continues to fascinate me and people's stories around those.
You know, I think I grew up in a rural area in Indiana on a farm, and I had quite the different exposure where I had literally no exposure to any other cultures than what I knew until I went to college. And then I hopefully channeled some of your mom. As a mom, I wanted to make sure that my children were exposed to all different cultures, and I hosted 19 international students when they were growing up, and we've been to, my daughter was a flower girl in a wedding in Tokyo. And so, but that's partly, you know, I learned from my own maybe sheltered upbringing and lack of exposure that was something that I wanted to make sure that my kids like your mom wanted to expose them to a lot of different cultures. So how about you? I've heard a little bit of your story. So,
well, yes, my story is a little different from you guys. What shifted me was trauma, pain, right? My upbringing, raised with a single parent household with my father. So I experienced a lot of lack. And growing up, I started developing like behaviors and cycles, and I started noticing that I was doing some of the same things that my parents were doing, but not the good things, right? I started looking at myself, especially when I started when I became a mother. I realized that this is a behavior thing, this is a talk thing, and the type of help that I wanted and that I was seeking, it was not really out there, right, as far as like in a profession. So I had to go within into my own personal experience. I had to start looking at it in a power place, in a place of power, versus in a woe is me. And so I was
doing your own self-help.
I was, and that's how I started painting as well. I figured out a way to transmute my pain into peace by using my creativity. So just me seeing the pattern, the algorithm, the behavior within myself, within my parents, their parents, and just really tracking it. I'm like, it gotta be something different. I want something different for my kids. So I changed, and I created the Phoenix Enhancing the Spirit LLC. It started off with just me selling my artwork, but then it turned into more of the counseling and the wellness services.
When did you start that? Phoenix?
In February of 2021. So I just turned 5 years this year.
Okay, congratulations.
Thank you.
5-year anniversary.
Thank you.
But certainly the seedling of that was ongoing and being developed just with your own needs.
Oh yeah, it's definitely ongoing. My husband, he is definitely my cowboy. He keeps me in these reins because my mind can go so far out, because everything that my business is literally what I do every day. So the counseling, the art, the farming, my hands will always be in the soil. So it's not like this is a 9-to-5 type of thing. So it's really my living word. So just keeping it, because I really want to help and just try to create as many ways as I can for others to find themselves as well. And I can get kind of crazy with that, with different services and stuff like that. I'll be wanting to put spaces everywhere. Like, we need a wellness center. We need high tunnels. We need this. We need that. So,
Well, you see a need.
Yes.
You often see a need,
Yes.
and then an opportunity. I was
Yes.
listening to someone this morning that you really fit to what he was talking about, where rather than being always thinking, woe me, or challenges, always focusing on the challenges, always seeing it as an opportunity.
Yep,
It's like
right.
every time you turn around, rather than see
Yeah.
the difficulty, you
Yeah.
turn it around and see the opportunity.
understanding the emotional part that comes with that, right? A lot of times we become afraid when it's a new space, the new waters. But knowing that on the other side of that fear, on the other side of that discomfort is growth.
Yes.
And it's so worth it. You know, it's so worth it when you really go within and start seeing yourself and freeing yourself from the restraints and stuff of the world. Yeah.
Makes you more sustainable and resilient at the same time.
Yeah, indeed. Because it teaches others, and then people see you and they're like, man, what happened? What are you doing? And then you're able to, as the words say, not just feed a man the fish, but now you're teaching them as well.
Mhm.
That's truly what sustainability is to me, paying it forward.
Absolutely. Yes, that is a good example, I think. Teaching a man to fish.
Yeah.
Or a woman to fish.
Yeah.
Either one.
Either one, it's a
Yeah.
vibration.
Yeah,
You know.
exactly.
Yeah.
You know, I think about environmental sustainability, but you also mentioned about your urban farming
Yes.
and having your hands in the soil. And for me, you spoke a little bit about just the inner peace, and the environment for me is so important. I mean, I love to hike, I swim in Lake Michigan. To be able to even touch at the farmer's market, if anybody frequents the farmer's market, to just go and see the colors and to be able to touch fresh produce. And my family, I still go and get meat from my family farm that has our name on it, which I think is so great. But that's where I find real peace, is in nature.
Yeah.
And to be able, so I think about the environment, to be able to appreciate the environment, the soils, to
Yeah.
be in nature. For me, I feel like that gives me a sense of inner peace. And so I think that it makes me the environmental sustainability makes me more sustainable
Indeed.
as a person, and it's where I do a lot of my reflection. When you think about your legacy, you know, I mentioned in your bio, Madeline, about the Calumet Voices, and certainly that was just such an impressive exhibit. But when you think about your legacy, is there something in particular that you've done in your professional or personal life that you hope will be sustainable enough that it'll be part of your legacy that you leave behind? 25 years at the Field Museum, you've done a lot. You've been through the name change to the Field.
That is true. We have taken a lot of opportunities where we find them, I think, and I really hope that the community stories can continue to be told. I think, you know, in the Field Museum, it's wonderful, and you know, who doesn't love being greeted by a dinosaur every day when you walk in the building? But it's a massive institution, and there's so much going on, and you know, it's known for some of these, you know, blockbuster exhibits and dinosaur friends, but it's there also really for the community. It is there for our stories, for the Calumet region stories, the Chicago region stories, local communities everywhere to tell their stories in the ways that they want to tell them, and that the museum and our exhibits, amazing exhibits department, and those techniques can help to showcase and to sort of foreground those stories. So that's what I really hope can continue at the museum, and that the museum can continue to help to shine a light and bring those resources out into our neighboring, for our neighbors to help to tell their stories, whether at the museum or right here at Calumet College or throughout the region.
I might ask you to expand a little bit because I know you've been involved in the Calumet Heritage Partners. And that is a group of people, a partnership that has been working to designate the Calumet Heritage Area nationally, which would allow, I'm really excited about it because again, Calumet College is celebrating the people, the land, and the industries of Northwest Indiana or the Calumet region. And it just so happens we would be at the center of the Calumet Heritage Area. And to be able to be on a map someday, Calumet College, to be on a map that celebrates the Calumet Heritage Area, I'm really excited about. I know it's been a process since maybe not 9 years, but shortly after 9 years. So maybe you can elaborate on where that is because it would be a very important designation federally to celebrate those cultures in the Calumet region.
Absolutely. So this designation is a federal designation for a Calumet National Heritage Area. There are 62 national heritage areas in the United States. Each one is different. Each one requires its own bill to pass through Congress for this designation. They're coordinated with the National Park Service, but they're not national parks. They may have national parks in them, like this one does. They often do. But it is a designation that really would help to showcase and elevate the importance of this region that we all know is so amazing and like no other place. But it can help to sort of shine that national spotlight on places and that have very important local stories that rise to national importance, and that national importance really is helping to help us all understand our country better and understand what it means to be American. What does it mean to have, industry and labor and art and culture and biodiversity that's important? What does that mean how does that help us better understand the American story? Through these very local stories of real people in real places. So where that process is right now, and the Field Museum has been a partner in that process with the Calumet Heritage Partnership for many years now, and the bill was actually just introduced into the Senate and the House both, and that's a huge, it's a huge deal. And now the bills it's in committee, basically. So, knock on wood, and who knows, but that's a very, it's a positive development, and we'll take it.
And I know we now have support from both of our senators and our representatives, so it is moving forward. So I might not see it when my time is done here, but I'm very excited and hoping that will happen. So thank you for all your work on that, because that's really exciting. It'll be exciting for the college too, but it'll really be exciting for the Calumet region. So
It's been my pleasure.
yeah. Legacy. When you think of, do you think of anything that you've started or that you're involved in, or does your legacy live on with the people you've served? Probably, and
when I think of legacy, legacy and sustainability is the same for me, right? Mm-hmm. So I look at legacy as a vibration, as a frequency of life, of something new. So it's not about just my way, but just being able to inspire what's already within somebody else to be known for that. To me, that's change. I think that is my legacy. That's the legacy I would like to leave.
so I think of those kind of legacies that you never really know about, because it's something you spark in somebody else.
There's no ego in that.
Yes, there's no ego. And though that person may have been a short encounter or something that you said that you never get a chance to see him again, but it lives on.
Yeah, and understanding too that everything that you choose chooses you. So you have to learn from it, even though I truly believe that we are all teacher and student in any given space at the same time. So even in that moment, if you are the teacher, seeing how you can elevate your teaching, seeing how you can elevate how you listen, how you give, that's it. You know what I mean? So that's where I find life. That's why I find legacy. That's why I find my own inner power.
Yeah.
Because it's no follow up. It's just I'll see you around, and when I see you, I know you're doing what you got to do.
Yeah.
So yeah.
You talked, Madeline, about being just interested in other cultures, and I think as an educational institution, you both just talked. The word that keeps coming to my mind is curiosity, like having curiosity, being curious about other people, other cultures, how you can impact or inspire or constant learner. Like you said, you're always a teacher and a learner as well. So just that curiosity. So that's words of wisdom too. Just
Indeed.
Staying curious.
Yeah, that childlike frequency.
Yeah.
Always respecting your own inner child and bringing in your inner child in every space. Not putting them in a corner, but literally being gentle with that space and never losing that, because that's where your real true creation comes from. Your imagination comes from. So it's important to not allow the restraints of the world to take that from you.
Or age. We heard our speaker this morning. She became an artist at 61. So, it's like, I think it's probably always bubbling up, and then you got to be open to it, open your arms, and welcome what is yet to come.
There you go.
Yes, exactly. So we have time. I think we've talked a bit. Questions from the audience. I would love for you to prompt us to share more or follow up on anything that we talked about. So.
We set up this microphone if you want to step up to ask your question.
Or comment, question. Thank you. Always love. Thanks for being the first.
So, what you said earlier about not being woe is me, how do you find that balance of, because it's not good to repress emotions, how do you find that balance of traveling through the emotion but also finding that empowerment within going through hard stuff as well?
Right. So, excellent question, because it's balancing everything. I never tell folks to dismiss what we would call, what some people will call like low feelings, low vibrations and stuff like that. I would never do that, right? Because that's where your power is. You got to be able to sit with yourself and understand that that space is only temporary. You know what I mean? Ask yourself, why am I feeling like this? And then when you go deeper, as you seek, you will find. You know what I mean? And just being gentle in that space as you go. Journal. A lot of times we have all of these tools that we came into the world with, not something that somebody given us, and we don't use them. We're not listening like we're supposed to. We're not being observant. We're not journaling. I was just telling my husband, as we're getting older, we have to become our own assistants. We have to become our own best friends, so we can preserve our own longevity. You know what I mean? So acknowledge, one, how you feel, but two, ask yourself why you feel that way. And then three, what can I do that would, so I don't feel this way again, right? Because it's just a situation. It's always learning. And when you get there, trust me, it'll get easier.
Thank you so much.
No
I actually really needed to hear that. That's why I asked that question.
No problem. I got you. No problem.
I know sometimes I always think when you're in these difficult times, I'm always wanting to know, I know I'm supposed to learn something from this situation, but you're not always supposed to know what that lesson is. And you don't come to it afterwards, so sometimes you just acknowledge it and say, I know that I will learn something, or I'll take something away from this. But we're not always meant to know what that is at that particular time.
Indeed. And speaking, I believe in speaking power over yourself, called affirmations, right? So being direct with that, not just saying, I am empowered. That's great. but what are you really dealing with? So if you're dealing with experiencing your lessons, your experiences, if you're looking at them in a way of depletion and lack, now an affirmation can be, I choose to experience my lessons with joy, with wisdom, with understanding. And I promise you will literally start becoming still within yourself, and you will become open to what is for you in that time.
And I also think, to focus on others, sometimes it's hard to get out of a low time in your life, but I always feel like if you can do one thing to make somebody else feel a little bit better, then it's hard to feel bad if you're helping others feel better. So it kind of takes that focus on yourself and what you're going through and putting it to work in a more positive way for others. So
I call it the Uno reverse card, right? Sometimes you got to do that, but it's also a balance in that, because you can develop a behavior to where you run from yourself and you be everybody else's savior versus your own.
it's true.
So it's just like you said, a healthy balance. Just having that inner first, and then it will come out.
And that acknowledgement's important, not to just hear it.
Yeah.
How about another question?
So, Ms. Ebony, thank you for sharing your story for one.
No problem.
Just from hearing that little percentage that you shared with us, I noticed seen a lot of parallels from my background and stuff like that. And I'm happy to say that about 3 years ago, I had that same experience where it's like, man, I'm in this cycle and I keep breaking out. One of the things that I struggle with most, and I'm kind of curious to see what your thoughts are on it, is the mindfulness piece of it. I catch myself constantly like starting to fall back into it, into whatever that cycle is. And I really struggle with that. I'm curious how you approach it.
I do a lot of talking to myself. Amy laughed because I told her in our previous conversation, I have a joke, it's literally 16 of me, right? You have to become your own best friend, and you have to, it's a scripture in the Bible, I'm not sure exactly which one, but it says that you have to cast it out, whatever it is that you're dealing with, and now it's no longer a part of you, right? So when you get to feeling like that, instead of holding those thoughts in, I was telling my husband, you got to be like, no, I choose to experience my lessons with joy and understanding. That was then. I've done the best that I could do with that understanding, and I am in my now. I will never be back in that space again, and you know what I'm saying, and you move forward. You have to get comfortable with your own emotions. You know what I mean? A lot of times we try to run from the stuff that's heavy, instead of sitting and dealing with it and knowing that that is only temporary, right? So being present, acknowledging who you are in your now, how far you've come, and then you can go back and see when those thoughts come. Be gentle with yourself, right? Because now you can heal your past and your present just by within your own thoughts and your perception. Like, man, I did the best I could. Look at where I'm at now. Look at how far I've come. And now, in preparation, right? Because I believe proper preparation leads to true growth and development. So in preparation, how can I be better for myself? How can I not make sure that I don't get here anymore? And you create those necessary boundaries for yourself. And talk to yourself. Speak life into yourself. And it'll be better. It'll feel a little crazy at first. But, trust me, you'll get there. You're already there because you spoke it. Yeah.
I think about be patient with yourself too.
Oh,
so
man.
I feel like for me, I was in my 30s, probably mid-30s, before I feel like I was really able to look in the mirror and feel grateful for all the lessons I learned from my difficulties growing up, and I feel like I was able to identify how they shaped me. But it sure was hard to be patient when you're going through it because you want to get through it, but be patient with yourself. Angela.
Thank you. First of all, thank all three of you for sharing your thoughts and experiences. However, one thing that I like to know from all powerful women, and that's exactly what you are, and is in today's age, when we're still trying to define what a woman is and what the roles of the women are, what is one advice that you would give to young women, including men, how to preserve your femininity in a world that you are in, and how did you succeed? Obviously, all three of your wives, mothers, successful women. How did you do it, and what is that we can expect? And not just the young ladies in this room, but the gentlemen who are going forward. How to preserve your own personality, how to perceive and preserve everything that you do against everything that is thrown your way.
That is a really great question.
Good question.
Yeah. Madeline, do you have a thought?
I don't know. It's a very good question, and part of me sort of feels like keep your eye on the prize. Like, do what you want to do and don't worry about the gendered aspect of it. But we live in a society, and those gendered aspects, are alive and well. I think one thing is to maybe just sort of through the power of stories also look at and maybe learn about what other women have done and how they have faced challenges and carved out their ways forward. And every day, just yesterday, I can't remember what I was reading, but it was like this story about women's suffrage. And I guess there's an exhibit now that just opened at the Hammond Public Library through I think it's the League of Women Voters of Northwest Indiana or Lake County. And it's about women's suffrage. All these stories about these leaders, these women who were doing all of these things when it was not popular, when there was no place for them to be, making these revolutionary strides for women's rights. And the more those stories are around and palpable and we can learn from them, then you see your own way forward and how you can balance things and how they tried to try this, it didn't work, okay, try this. But that those options are real and they're there, and we can learn from them and do them.
Yeah, I want to pick up on a couple of things that you said. I think about authenticity comes to mind, to just always be authentic, but also thinking about the field of education, and I remember when I was I was a vice president at a very young age, and I remember in the Catholic college that I was at, it was founded by religious sisters, and I remember meeting one she was like 90 at the time, and she had gone to Oxford at a time when women couldn't really go to college, and because she was religious, she was there. And I think now it's so different. A majority of college students are female now. And so to think about back in the day when women didn't go to college, couldn't go to college, and now, again, the stories of how far we've come. But to be the authentic self, that's one of the things that I think about. And being in a household of two brothers and raised by my dad, I don't know that I thought of gender a lot. Maybe I thought I was one of my brothers, I don't know. Or you just did on a farm. I did a lot of the cooking, a lot of the traditional, I suppose, female. But today, my husband is watching our three little granddaughters in Indianapolis that are 5, 3, and 1, and was going to take them to the Children's Museum. And I think how far we've come that he is with 3 little girls and taken them to the Children's Museum, and I'm here working. So I had a little FOMO, fear of missing out. I was like, oh, I kind of want to be doing that. But so I would just say being your authentic self, because I think when I started my career, it was in public accounting, and there were only 2 women partners, and so I was a manager, and neither were married and had children. And for me, it was important for my career, but I decided what was more important was the title mom rather than the title partner, and I wanted to have a family and have children, and at least at that time, I didn't see that I could have both. So I think knowing your values and authentically being yourself would be my advice. So, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I agree with both of you ladies. And I also want to add more on what you said. I believe that authenticity is the key. I believe in shedding what a woman should be, right? That conversation shouldn't even be had anymore. Even what a man should be, right? Because when you understand what we are and who we are spiritually, we have the energy of masculine and feminine, right? So to tell a man to just remain in his masculine energy, and you wonder why, he's upset and, don't know how to speak or communicate, it's because we're not giving space for that, right? So for me, I would just tell the young women that's out here to just be you. Look to other women and even the men. Look to each other as inspiration. Look for the beauty versus the control, right? And be yourself. We all supposed to be different for a reason. We're all created differently for a reason. So there is no, in my opinion, there is no, this is how a woman's supposed to be. You know what I'm saying? I think that should be respected. Because there's some times where you see me in my get up right now, but then if you see me, I have on my little Alaskan hat, my cowboy boots, some cargo pants, and you wouldn't even, be like, whoa, So it's different roles, and by me being raised, I was raised in a household with me, and my father raised me, and I was raised with my brother, so I was the only girl, and I did not grow up as a princess, right? So I grew up, I consider myself a tomboy, so I struggled being around my friends who were girly. I thought there was something wrong with me, right? Because I compared myself, and I struggled all the way up into my 30s with that. Just by comparing myself on thinking, oh, I'm too masculine, oh, I'm too this, oh, I'm too that. When I just got to a space where I am all that I am. And whoever is going to accept that is truly what's for me. I think that when we start looking to fit in a box, that's when we start losing the quality of who we are. So I hope that helps.
Oh, no, that's perfect answer. Thank you.
No problem.
Well, thank you very much for everyone being here. Thank you so much for the conversation. I always love these. I want to just do a shout out for our call, being an artist. We talked a little bit about that and sustainability. And next month is our Earth Day, and we will have an exhibit. So for the artists, but people that you might know, I want to share a call out to artists to submit work for our Earth Day exhibit. Because it's nature on the line. So as we're talking about sustainability, I think if you're interested in that, nature on the line, an exhibition exploring the landscapes where nature and industry meet. Artists are encouraged to draw inspiration from local trail systems, freight lines, and regional identity shaped by both rails and routes. So I thought that we might just end our session with that. So if you know artists, given our topic today on resilience and sustainability and shaping the future, I wanted to make that call out. And again, thank our guests so much for being here. thank our audience for coming and for asking great questions to allow us to have a conversation with you too. So it's always a pleasure to host this, and I want to wish you the best for the rest of the Humanities Fest. Thank you.
Thank you.